running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing, Quasar Markets Live? We got a crazy one for you today, man. Bitcoin smashing records. House passed the massive tax bill. We're seeing some big pre-market moves, especially in the solar sector, but otherwise a bunch of others, Snowflake and more moving. We'll check in a little bit on the Asian and European markets. So grab your coffee and let's get ready to go. Got to start with Bitcoin. I just see I don't have it on the screen, actually. Bitcoin made its move 100 and almost 112, 111,903 here. Great move to the upside. Really broke through the resistance we had here at 108 and a half pretty easily and just continued to move up. Not alone, we've seen Ethereum's up about 4.74%. Solana was up about 6.5%. And even the meme coins like Hype are moving to the next level. So, Bitcoin is definitely the story of the morning so far. When we talk about what's pushing it, we had that sell wall that we kept on seeing there at 106. And once that was broken, we saw a few different things converge together that's really pushed us right through to the moon. First, we've seen some good regulatory wins, some big ones. The U.S. Senate advanced the Genius Act, which is a stablecoin bill requiring issuers like Tether and USDC to hold safe reserves, and it boosts crypto legitimacy. And it will also be one of the things that starts to push these banks that want to make their own stable coins. It will give them a path to do so. So that was one of the first things we saw on the regulatory front. Also, Hong Kong passed its stablecoin bill on Wednesday, mandating licenses for fiat-backed stablecoins. Issuers under the Hong Kong Monetary Authority are ensuring full reserve backing and segregation. So, again, this sets a global benchmark along with the U.S., making a couple of crypto hubs coming out. We'll see if Dubai follows suit and get some regulations into place. Keep in mind that stablecoins is about a $232 billion market cap. And it's really one of the things in the blockchain and crypto world that supports adoption because it eases cross-border payments so much. And indirectly, it helps lift Bitcoin and everything with it. When there's good, solid news on the regulatory front, we tend to see Bitcoin and everything move up. And in this case, like we've seen Bitcoin, the major layer one solutions like Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, all having big days. And then even the meme coins, Hype, Pepe, Perp, all moving up this morning also. So again, and when the broad market moves, you can usually get a sense that, the fear and greed factor is lifting, all of this stuff working out. I do want to also point out one that is regulatory but leads into institutional. Texas Senate passed the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill, SB 21, on Wednesday. It's awaiting the governor's signature, and if signed, Texas could pioneer state-level Bitcoin reserves, focusing on assets that have $500 billion in market cap, like Bitcoin. They could also get Ethereum. There's a couple others that would fall in there, but not many that would get in there. But basically, Bitcoin being the main one that they would be able to invest in here. And as I said, that moving into the institutional side, we're just seeing a huge amount of inflows into the spot Bitcoin ETFs. We saw about 608 million in inflows yesterday. So again, that's $608 million in buying pressure that's coming into the market. And when you combine that with the fact that 6-7 months ago, we had the last halving, which cut supply down, what we're seeing is even the demand by retail on the ETFs is more Bitcoin than is being made on a daily basis. So when you start to see that, it starts to be the dynamics that we've seen for our last bull runs that really jumped us through the roof. And again, that's 6 days of inflows that we've seen. And another big one is we saw BlackRock announce their first real buys of IBIT for themselves, for their clients. So that's a big one. We know Strategy, which was formerly MicroStrategy, has been buying heavily, along with MetaPlanet and a few of the other Bitcoin treasury reserve companies. So that's been a big thing. Like you said, over-the-counter demand is huge and picking up again. We're seeing sovereign demand start to pick up, and that tightening of the OTC supply drives markets up because it means that they then need to move into the spot crypto markets to get their Bitcoin. I haven't gotten a call to see that that's moved, but they were paying about a 10% to 15% premium over the counter desks that were able to get a large amount of Bitcoin. They're willing to pay an increased price for those. And again, that usually last time we saw that, it really was when we made our last highs and when we saw the push after the election and into the inauguration. The other thing that still keeps me bullish here is that on-chain metrics are still looking bullish. Bitcoin futures open interest hit 80 billion, up about 17%, despite over $500 million in liquidation, signaling that we got new money entering or new traders coming into the markets. And exchange inflows dropped from 22,000 Bitcoin to 121,000 in November, with individual deposits down from 98,000 to 29,000, indicating low sell pressure. We're not seeing that sell wall once it came off of Binance at that 106 level. We haven't really seen it. We've also seen stablecoin inflows coming. We got 46.9 inflows on USDT, a record. That's boosting liquidity. With that being said, daily RSI is clicking to overbought, but still showing momentum. And we still have a MACD bullish crossover in play. So those are all the bullish things. I do want to put us on short squeeze alert. And part of that is that we are seeing a lot of traders aggressively short Bitcoin. Long-short ratio is at its lowest level since September of 2022, indicating that traders are shorting at 85,000, expecting a double top. But Bitcoin's keeping climbing and squeezing shorts out at that 97,000 and 105,000 level, where a lot of them were liquidated already. Short squeeze is fueling the rally as bulls hunt stop losses. However, open interest is growing faster than Bitcoin's 4.8% gain, suggesting that leverage-driven moves may be less sustainable. So watch it there. It's going to be a little bit crazy here. We do see that the market maker's positive gamma at 115 to about 150 per derivative data. It could slow the rally as dealers sell to hedge, acting as an invisible hand. And, we do see a lot of calls here for 123 to 125. I fall more into that 114 to 118 level personally. I will be looking as that to be the play. What do you guys think? Is the rally got legs? Are you worried about the RSI? Do you think short squeezes continue to push us up today? Or do you think they've already, the shorts are already closing their positions? Those are the questions we have this morning for you. As we look at the market here briefly before we get into our next sort of segment, tick is slightly positive. Advanced decline, pretty neutral. We have seen the SPY and the Qs go positive here this morning. They were trading lower, but now we have just moved. We're now up about 28 basis points on the Q, trading at about 514.50. And the SPY is now up about 10 basis points here and trading back up at around 583.38. So a little bit of a move up after yesterday's declines here. Not a big bounce. We do see on the SPY, it's using this nice support here that we got in the 582.50 area so far. Q's not so much in the middle of it. It's sort of in a spot in between support and resistance. Seeing resistance by a descending top on the linear regression, though. as a quick look here. So we will see what we get as the day opens up. Other biggest news as we start to talk about what could give us a run up here. Tax bill and treasury yields have to come into the conversation here. And we do see, if we look at treasury yields, they have spiked 30-year now at 5.1. So again, just 5-6 days ago, it was down about 4.8. 5, now 5.1, and got to a high of 5.153 overnight. So 30-year still moving up. 10-year is slightly off of the highs and negative here today a little bit at 4.58. But treasury yields still showing an issue in the markets overall. House did narrowly pass President Trump's tax and spending bill this morning, which should and did have the markets moving back to the upside. But with that being said, it is rocking the markets on a negative side when it comes to clean energy stocks. It makes 2017 tax cuts permanent, adds new brakes, but ends the clean energy credits by 2028, not 2031. Goldman Sachs says tax cuts could boost growth, but tariffs may offset those gains. And like I said, the bond market is reacting with the 30-year hitting a high not seen since 2023. 10 years still sitting at 4.25. Those higher yields are going to raise borrowing costs, hitting growth stocks. The Treasury's $16 billion 20-year bond auction saw weak demand at 5.04 yields, showing caution. We do know, right, that it was the bond market that brought the president sort of back to the negotiating table when it came to tariffs. Strategists like Kevin Green that we see here on our show warn that the S&P 500 is at a critical support level. Will tax cuts spark a rally, or are yields the bigger story? That's what we've got to figure out here today. Which one is going to pace the way the markets move? If we look here so far, the Spider Select Funds, the 11 different sectors of the S&P, we do see that XLK, which is technology, is slightly up. XLRE, real estate, slightly up. Rest are currently in the red, but there are a few that look like they want to go green here this morning, maybe on the cash open. Tick is very muted again. Advanced decline sitting negative 200. 60.99.76. So the dollar index has regained a little bit of steam. It did drop all the way to 99.36 yesterday before pulling up a little bit here. So we are seeing a little bit move to the upside here. Not a tremendous move, but at least maybe a stabilization of the dollar index. And like I said, a little bit of volatility. SPY basically flat right now. Q slightly up. Gold sitting at 33.12, down a little bit today after seeing 3 green days in a row. Silver sitting at 33. Like I said, crypto markets continuing to move up. Did notice WTI threatened to break back down below the 60 handle here. So again, that's usually a key metric to watch. And like I said, when we start to look at the solar industry just getting absolutely destroyed here today, we see Sunrun down about 35%, Enphase down about 21%, FSLR down about 1.75%, NXT, all of these are solar plays, down about 6.29%. So again, solar stocks are definitely tanking on the taxpayer bill fears. And again, the main takeaway there, or why aren't they worried about it, is that it definitely speeds up the time frame to reduce tax credits for solar panels and for that industry. So definitely something to keep your eye on here today. Usually on this kind of drop, I'd be talking about buying the dip. I don't know, man. This is a big move. I'd have to digest exactly what that means to me. I think it is a big deal. I think a big swath of the consumers that buy solar panels or are considering buying solar panels are usually getting a heavy tax subsidy to do so. And with that coming off, I think we will see it grind to literally a halt here in the U.S. What do you guys think? Is this a buy the dip opportunity on solar, or is this you got to wait and see? Excuse me, there. I need a little drink. The other one of the other big takeaways that I have today I want to talk about is OpenAI buying Johnny Ive's firm for 6.4 billion, and as it says on the screen, Apple faces an AI hardware threat. Got to point out for those that don't know, Johnny Ive was the main or designer of the Apple iPhone. Guy's sort of a legend in that sort of industry. And he has or had a company that was working on AI hardware devices. So now we have this huge deal. And again, what have we been talking about here on Quasar Markets? Merger and acquisition. And what we've seen is a huge move by Sam Altman and the folks at OpenAI. They acquired Johnny Ive's design firm Love From for 6.4 billion. Ive was Apple's former design legend. Like I said, he shaped both the iPhone and the MacBook. OpenAI is aiming for an AI-powered hardware to rival Apple's ecosystem. I do think that this is a big deal. I do think that we've seen Apple has struggled with their AI to start. As BigBeat says, they're in AI, what they call it AI intelligence, is the least intelligent AI out there. And hardware has been where they've dominated, right? The iPhone, first to go to a screen, first to give you that click feel with the screen, all of the things that they innovated. Now that company that or the person who was leading that for Apple, now doing this. I will say, Johnny Ive has been gone for years from Apple, but this Apple AI, OpenAI move could move to create sleek AI devices. And we saw them drop. Apple dropped about 2% yesterday, down about another 38 basis points today in the pre-market. Some of it's tariffs, some of it's the push for U.S. production. Keep in mind that Apple assembled $22 billion in iPhones in India last year. But as we know, the president wants that stateside, raising costs. Apple's cash and loyal base keep it strong, but AI hardware race is on. Do we think OpenAI can match Apple's design? Let me know what you think there. But, I think they're going to give it a push, and I think it could redesign. It might not be what we're thinking. It doesn't need to be an Apple iPhone, but how about, having AI on your wrist, on your glasses, think next level there. To me, very exciting stuff. Let's take a quick look here at the pre-market pumpers and see what we can find there. So far up the most this morning, Urban Outfitters, Garrett Motion, Galaxy Digital. So a lot of these are going to be the Bitcoin names. Galaxy Digital, crypto, Bitcoin name. Clean Spark, a Bitcoin named. Iron Limited, a Bitcoin name. Mara, a Bitcoin name. Riot, a Bitcoin name. BitDeer, CoreWeave. All of those are either Bitcoin mining companies, or in the case of Galaxy Digital, not just a Bitcoin mining company, but also a crypto sort of hedge fund investment firm. They do everything. That is Michael Novogratz's company that just got added to the NASDAQ, that was formerly trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange, now moving there. We still see Weibo moving up, so Chinese names still getting a little bit of love here today. There, Weibo, Heisei, there were a few others down here that are there. Coinbase, again, moving up about 2.6% here this morning on the move. So, and then Webull, what a good start to their trading here, up 2.5% so far today. Again, a lot of tech stocks moving to the upside now on this today. On the downside, like I said, the laggards, we see mostly solar, a little bit of retail with Williams Sonoma in there. And then we also get into healthcare we got to talk about too. So let me pull up my notes here. First of all, on Urban Outfitters, so let's pull that one up. That was on the upside here. We see them up about 20% here now. They had their earnings beat. They were ended up about $1.16 per share on their EPS. Forecast came in at 84 cents. They had 1.33 billion in sales, again topping expectations, and more for them. All brands saw growth, and they saw it a record profit beat for them, and they gave decent guidance moving forward. So nice move up here by Urban Outfitters. Another one move that was moving to the upside was Snow. We know yesterday that Palo Alto got hit hard after refusing to give forward guidance. Snow is was up about 8%, still is, after a quarter one adjusted earnings of 24 cents a share. Again, that was a beat on the EPS, and their revenue was up 26% year over year, with again a beat. So Snowflake, the opposite of what we saw with Palo Alto yesterday. Nice move up, although I didn't look to see what PAN finished up the day. Yeah, they were down 6.8 yesterday. So that's the story. Tale of two tech companies on other sides of the earnings reports. I did want to talk about Humana. Like I said, Humana moving down as we are seeing the CMS's Medicare Advantage audits targeting about 17 billion in overpayments. So again, we've seen Humana. CVS was down also on that news. Yeah, CVS down about 272. UNH was down again today on that news, about 3.3%. We know they've been under a lot of strafe here the last couple of days, down 5.78, almost 10% in the last couple of days here. Could start to revisit. They broke below the 300 level, which was sort of a key support here. So again, health services also definitely under more fire here. I want to talk about one of BigBeat's favorites here. We are about 3 minutes from the open here. Nike was up about 0.5%, now up 1.52%, as they've announced that they are going to partner with Amazon, and they are going to start doing it. So Nike's back on Amazon's US site after 5 years. They're hiking prices up by 7%, which could boost margins, but risks pushback amid tariffs. And again, so far people seem to like it. People seem to like it. Do you like it for Amazon? Do you like it for Nike more? I don't know which one I would necessarily say I like it more for, but I definitely think it's good. Yeah, Mr. Flanagan talking in here. Yeah, Dixie inching up with that passing. Definitely good. I would actually ask you though, Steve. I would have thought we'd see a little bit more of a reaction than we did. But I do wonder if a lot of that downside is the solar that's taking down the markets and the indices so far so much. As again, run down 35%, and phase down 20%. All of those really down. Healthcare dragging down the market. But yeah, absolutely seeing that first positive fall in place without a doubt when it comes to that. Another one I wanted to talk about that's sort of been down in the dumps over the last year or so. ASML finally came out with some news. One of Europe's largest companies. I think they're second or third largest company out there. And not really that huge of a reaction to the upside here for ASML, but they did update their next gen chip making tech. They're key for their AI and their 5G chips. It does, in my opinion, show that ASML is not running away and maybe Europe has a little bit of life to take a look at. Yeah, tough to break that fear psychology right now, the bear psychology. I think it's the fear psychology right now more than the bear still, Steve. I think that's what I would call it. I don't think people are necessarily bearish. I think they're a little bit scared still. They're a little bit worried or weary about what the next, is the next tweet a good tweet or a bad tweet, what's coming up there. So I do think that is the way I would term it more right now is because I don't see because if it was bears, I think we'd see more of a downswing. We're not seeing that capitulation like we talked about yesterday. We're just seeing it's just sliding, and we're seeing other sectors that are picking up, a little bit of steam and news. Good earnings are showing me that people will go to the upside on something like an Urban Outfitters or some of those others we just talked about, the Bitcoin mining companies. When we're seeing good news there, but it's also a mixed bag too because we're still seeing a little bit of that the yield's still not moving in the direction we need to see. That 30-year sitting at 5.11 is a little rough right now. Has come down this morning as that news came out. So maybe, budget falls in place, Fed gets in line also. But market doesn't seem to think the Fed's going to get in line anytime soon here. It looks like so. That's going to be part of it. Those I did mention it earlier. It looked like those the 20-year was not a solid auction yesterday, from my understandings. So that could weigh on it a little bit also. Sorry, just taking a look here at a couple of things coming across. And we are open. Let's see what we've got here at the open. The tick is down about 256. So again, a little bit of a muted response here. I thought we'd maybe see a little bit more movement here. Bitcoin is taking a lot of money out of the market right now. As I mentioned, the amount of money moving into those into the ETFs, which is it looks like a lot of institutional money moving into those ETFs. BlackRock announced a huge buy yesterday. That they are moving into the market. They're buying Bitcoin for their customers. Yeah, we do need a peace deal in some way or some tariffs coming out. Yep, I'm with you, Mr. Flanagan. Those are the things we talked about yesterday for sure. That would take us in that same direction. So, yep, maybe if the president doesn't have to spend so much time on the Hill trying to get things moving, maybe he can spend more time and get some of this stuff working on a more geopolitical level, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Muted open so far, advanced decline down about 2,200 here. And I will point out VIX has gone back above that key 20 level that I watched. We're back at about 21 here. So there is a little bit of volatility starting to spike in. So it does look, and this is just my take on it, is that the good news today is pushed the VIX up as opposed to bad news pushing the VIX up. What I mean there is where we were seeing more fear and that bear psychology dominating the market, maybe the signs here is that, some of the bulls want to come out and play. So volatility could start to pick up here. It just broke through 21. So maybe we will see a little bit of a fun trading day pick up. Qs have moved to the upside, but still muted at 514. That's not a number that has me very excited. Got to get back up to that 518 level for me to start to wet my whistle here and be excited about it. SPY at 582.55. And that one's right at a key support level here, as Kevin Green pointed out. This is the key sort of make or break area. Any drop down to this 475 could be trouble for the SPY and the broader markets. Mag 7 so far, NVIDIA up about a 0.5 percentage point here. So a nice little bounce back here by NVIDIA after the tough day yesterday where it dropped from about 175.50 all the way down to 130 before closing in that 132 area where we're trading right now. Apple down about 80 basis points. And for me, this move by OpenAI, the one thing that I always felt that Apple had the moat was around was, let's face it, they make the best devices, right? You might not be an Apple fan for certain reasons, but their iPhone, is a solid product. Their MacBooks were solid products. All of the stuff they made hardware wise they tended to have a little bit of a moat. Does this move by Johnny Ive, the new company, getting bought out by OpenAI, mean that in the future that moat is going to be tougher? Almost a full percentage point here on Apple. So it does seem like the market's telling you what they're thinking about it so far. So Amazon pretty muted here, still down a little bit, another 37, 40 basis points. Again, this has slid from 216 down back down to 200 here over the last week or so. As the tariff talk has continued to pick up. Again, big news on Amazon today was their announcement by Nike that they're going to start after 5 years selling their shoes and stuff on Amazon again. They did say they're going to put a 7% surcharge on them, though. I couldn't find out if that surcharge was across all of their lines, across all of their spots, or if that was an Amazon, only 7% increase. And that might sound weird, but in the restaurant world that I come from, that is not unheard of to see with DoorDash. People will put their food or restaurants on DoorDash, and then the amount of money that they lose to DoorDash, they just put a surcharge and charge it to the end user. Bitcoin dropped back below 111 here, so we are seeing a little bit of selling. Not surprising, as it makes a new all-time high. In fact, the fact that it hasn't had a huge major pullback is probably more positive for me than anything here. It did yesterday during the afternoon make a decent little pullback here on its first attempt to get up. When it broke 109, got just below 110. It made that pullback all the way to the 106 support. What was the sell wall we couldn't get through, but we can see since about Monday morning at 3 p.m. or Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. that has served as a really good support line here. We hit it and took off from there. We just got a little bit of a double top on the hourly chart here now. So Bitcoin not giving a clear direction here. To me, usually after these blow off pops, if we don't get to 115 pretty quickly here, I'd be looking for a pullback here to that 107, 106 level personally. But again, if we hit that 115, that's going to give us some breathing room in between. But that's really the next target all of the analysts sort of had marked out was 115. So otherwise, we're just crawling to new highs, which I'll take all day long, as opposed to blasting off to the next level. Ticks continuing to slide to the downside a little bit here, down about 439,500. Advanced decline down about 3,100 now. Dixie, as Mr. Flanagan said, out trying to break here back above 100. Mr. Flanagan, does 100 get us moving, you think, back into equities here? Is that enough to get some folks to move back into the dollar? If we can break through that 100 mark here on the DXY. VIX continuing to climb. The VIX climbing's got me a little bit concerned here for equities right now. You see Coinbase still up 2.68%. Let's see if we have any moving morning pumpers here. Urban Outfitters still the one, up about 22% now. And then a lot of the crypto companies, as I talked about. Hertz making a little bit of a move up today. I didn't have that one on my bingo card for today. Hertz making a nice little move up after they had fallen. They made a good move they dropped on their earnings and had recovered nicely, and now trying to get through that resistance and that $6 change. For those that don't know, Bill Ackerman and his company have taken a huge stake in Hertz. So we'll see if he was right there. Still down about 300. Mass decline falling, now down about 3,000. Taking a look here. Seeing if anything's hitting my tweet deck. Solana pumping here. Seeing a news. Solana just Made a partnership. No. Anybody that's looking here, Solana could make a move here. SOL on news that big banks from the finance news, big banks strike deal to move to Solana blockchain. So a lot of banks that were using blockchain to do stuff were using Ethereum. Looks like we are doing it. Wow, and now MicroStrategy announced they're going to raise another $2.1 billion here to buy more Bitcoin. Michael Saylor will not stop. Those of you that have been watching for a while know that I am anti the fact that they are continuing to buy to this much because, again, it's getting too centralized in one place, which is in Strategy B. Wow, another 2.1 billion, man. Not seeing much else hit here. We do have PMI coming up at 9:45, so that could be something that gets us moving a little bit here. Seeing the ECB talking current rate levels is not restrictive. Tick is slightly down. Qs, we are just not seeing much volatility move. VIX is picking up. It's got the most volatility. We don't see much action here. Qs, less than 10 basis points up. SPY less than 4 basis points to the downside. Dow Jones down about 8-9 basis points. RUT's down about 60. We're not seeing much. Will the PMI get us moving today? Will anything get us moving today? Is the market working? What's going on here? Going back above 111, that's what's working so far, 111,400. Again, the new all-time high now is 111,888, at least on Coinbase. Oh, that's not Coinbase, that's Bitstamp. What is it on Coinbase? Hold on one second. There we go. 111903 on Coinbase is the lead. So G7 meeting here maybe gives us some stuff. It says the G7 will most likely have a joint communique coming in from the German finance minister. So far, the imbalance on the open was S&P down about 217.6, NASDAQ to the negative. So first move was to the downside. We do see oil prices dipping on a report of another potential OPEC plus supply boost. Ooh, rhetoric picking up in India and Pakistan also. Pakistan will not get water over which India has rights, India PM Modi says. Q starting to pick up a little bit here. Now up 14 basis points. So trying to get a little bit of steam going, but not really. Not a whole bunch going on this morning. Again, the only thing is really moving up are crypto names and Urban Outfitters. Same thing downside outside of Williams Sonoma. We don't see much moving the downside. Most things trading right about where they were in the pre-market. Not a real big move here. Not much of a move. Maybe we get a little bit of a nothing burger. I guess crypto is where it's all about right now. Total market cap up at 3.45 trillion now. Bitcoin trading at 111,350, 111,400. Still very positive in that zone here. Ethereum trying to break that 2650 zone here. Okay, everybody, that's going to do it for us today. When Steve's not here, I go about 45 minutes. I just can't talk for a straight hour. Everybody, have a great trading day, and we will see you tomorrow.